Hello, I'm Greg. Welcome to my channel, Midnight Oil Software, and this tutorial on building and deploying a Unity game for iOS without a Mac. In this video, I'm going to walk you through the entire process for creating RSA keys, certificate signing requests, mobile provisioning certificates, all of which are necessary to sign your game for publishing by Apple. I'll also cover how to set up your Unity project for iOS, how to set up a Unity Cloud build configuration to build and deploy your game to the Apple App Store without ever having to use a Mac. So whether you're an indie developer or just getting started with game development, this tutorial is going to help you to get your game to the iOS platform with ease. So grab your favorite beverage, pull up a chair, and follow along as I teach you how to build your Unity game and publish it to the Apple App Store without a Mac. Before you can submit an application to the Apple App Store, you need to create certificates and a mobile provisioning profile. There's multiple steps to this process, and we're going to go through them all. First, though, you need to download openssl, and you can get it from openssl.org from their downloads page. I will put a link in the description. And once you've downloaded openssl, install it following the instructions in the installer. And then I actually added openssl to my path in Windows so I can run it from any folder that I need to. Once you've downloaded and installed openssl, we're going to open up a command prompt so we can actually run it. So I'm going to type in cmd, come over here and say run as administrator. I'm running it as administrator because I'm going to create my keys under my program files folder. So let me change to that directory, and it's going to be under openssl 164 bin. And I've actually created a subfolder under there called Midnight Oil Software 2023. So right now I have an empty folder. There's nothing in there. So what I'm going to do is run openssl to generate an RSA key. And I will put the text for this command in the description. You'll just replace the key name with your key name. And if that was successful, you should see a key file right there. Next, we need to generate a certificate signing request from that key. So the command will be as follows. And just remember to replace this with whatever the values are for your key. And now we need to fill in a few things. They're going to want a passphrase. And now we need to specify some information that will be bundled in with that certificate signing request. So fill this in with the values that are appropriate for you. And if everything worked, then you should see those keys there. Next, we want to generate a distribution certificate from the Apple Developer Portal. So this all assumes, of course, that you have an Apple Developer account. Creating an Apple Developer account is beyond the scope of this tutorial. But once you have an Apple Developer account and you've logged into the Apple Developer Portal, you should be able to come to this menu here, Certificates. So I'm actually going to go back to the root of the menu here. So you can get to the screen if you just log into the developer portal and you go up under your account, and then under program resources you can see certificates here. So under certificates we want to create a new certificate, and this is going to be for Apple distribution. And unless you need any other special services or things, you should just be able to go ahead and click continue. And it's going to want that CSR file that we created. So I'm going to click choose file. And then I am just going to go to my C:, program files, openssl win64 bin, Midnight Oil Software 2023, and then I'm going to select that file and click continue. And here is our certificate name. And we are going to want to download that file. And we want to download it to the same folder where we created the other files. So that actually went directly to my downloads file. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to use Windows Explorer to copy that file into the same folder where we had created our SSA key and our certificate signing request. Now we need to create what's called a .p12 file, and we'll use this when we're assigning a mobile provisioning profile to our cloud build. So let's just go ahead and get that out of the way. I'm going to go back to our command prompt, and you can see here there's my distribution certificate. So enter a command like this, but just substitute the values that are appropriate for your certificate. And now we have a PEM file. And so now we have to run another command to create the .p12 file. And when we do this, we're going to be prompted to enter a password, and you're going to want to use the same password you used when you created the certificate signing request. And now for the password. And it wants me to enter an export password. And type it again to make sure you got it right. All right, and now we have a P12 file. Now it's time to create an app ID for our game. So go back into the Apple Developer Portal. We're going to go back and select identifiers and then drop down this app IDs and click app IDs. And you can see I already have some app IDs already. We're going to create a new one. So this will be an app ID. Click continue and then select app, continue. All right, we need to specify a few things. We need to give it a description. And so I am going to call this Highland Panic. And then we need to give it a bundle ID. And this is kind of like backwards. It's going to be com dot and then whatever your domain is dot and then the name of the game. So in my case, it's going to be com dot midnightoilsoftware dot Highland Panic. And then you need to check if there's any app services that you need. You need to make sure you check those here. I don't need any of these, so I am just going to come over here and click continue. And then it wants me to confirm, and I will say register. And so now I have a new app identifier for Highland Panic. The next step is to create a mobile provisioning profile. So we're going to go back over here and select profiles, and we're going to say generate a profile. And this is going to be for the App Store. Click continue. And then we need to pick the app ID that we created for it. So it's going to be that one. And then we need to pick the certificate that we're going to use for that. And now we need to give it a name, and we're going to call this Highland Panic. And say generate. And we need to download that. And so once again, of course, it's going to send it down to the downloads folder. And so I'm going to use my Windows Explorer windows and copy that. So I've got this here. And I will drag that mobile provisioning certificate right into that folder right there. The next step is we want to actually configure our app for iOS deployment. So I'm going to go into Unity now. And I actually have a different branch in my source control for the different platforms I want to release to. So I created a branch in GitLab and I called it iOS Release. And so I'll just bring this over here and show you that. So this is my GitLab project for Highland Panic, and I have a branch there called iOS Release. And I've just cloned that branch, and I'm going to configure the project on that branch for iOS. And then we're going to go into Unity Cloud Build, and we're going to set up a build configuration to pull from that branch and build it for iOS and push it up to the Apple App Stores to App Store Connect. So what you need to do in here is go into your build settings. So File, Build Settings. Make sure you select iOS if you haven't already, and then you're going to say Switch. Like if we were to switch to Windows, we'd have to say Switch Platform. So I've already done that, and I've switched it to iOS. And then click Player Settings, and you would set any of your specific settings that you need for your game. You want to make sure you specify your company name, product name, and a version number up here. But what's really important is we need to go down and set a bundle identifier. And so we're actually going to override this and give it the exact same name that I gave that provisioning certificate, just like so. And then it's important whenever you want to push a new build up to App Store Connect that you increment this build number, because it will not let you push an old build. Like if you already have a build 0 and you try and push another build 0, it won't take the new one. You need to increment this with every single build. All right, so I'm going to save this. And I'm going to push those changes up to my repository, and then we're going to show you how we can set this repository up and how we can configure our Unity dashboard to set up a build configuration to pull from this repository. So one very important thing I almost forgot to put in the video, before I can push my changes up to source control, we need to add this post build script. I'm going to open this up in Notepad. I will put the contents of this little script in the description of the video, and you can paste this exactly as it is, and you just need to put this file somewhere in your project, and then we're going to reference that from the Unity Cloud Build later in the post build step. And basically this is a bash script that will upload your final build up to App Store Connect, which is what you use to publish it to the Apple App Store. So I almost forgot to put this in the video, and I actually had to come back and add it while I was doing the editing. So very important step. The next thing we're going to want to do is set up our Unity Cloud Build. So you're going to have to go over to the Unity dashboard for the game services. And if you have a Unity account, which I assume you do if you're making a Unity game, just go to dashboard.unity3d.com and click sign in and give it your Unity credentials. I'm already signed into mine, so I'm just going to switch over to this window here. And as you can see, I've already got some projects set up. I'm going to take you through the process of creating a new project. So you're going to want to create, up in this drop down here, click Create Project and give your project a name. And so I'm just going to call this Test Project. Create that. And this should take you to a dashboard for that project. So we don't have any configurations set up for this. So one thing we're going to want to do is go into the project settings, and we're going to want to set up source control for this project. So if you click on the source control tab, you can choose your source control provider type. In my case, I'm using GitLab, so that's what I would pick. And then I would enter my credentials so that I can sign into GitLab from Unity Cloud Build. Now I'm going to switch back over to my Highland Panic project because I've already configured source control. And you can see that once you've entered your source control type and you've authenticated, you can choose what repository you want to build from that GitLab account. And once you've done that, you'll be able to choose what branch you want to build from in your build configuration. So we need to set up a build configuration for that. If you go over to my Highland Panic configuration, you see I've already got one for Windows. We're going to create a new one for iOS. But before we do that, we want to go back into our settings and we want to click this Credentials tab here. And as you can see, I've got credentials here for Android to release my Ninja Eggs game up to Google Play. We're going to click Add Credentials, check iOS, and then I'm going to call this Highland Panic iOS. And then this is where we upload the mobile provisioning file and the P12 file that we created in earlier steps. So there's our mobile provisioning file. There's our P12 file. And it wants us to enter the password that we created for that when we created those certificate keys. So let's go ahead and enter that here. And click Save. So now I have credentials for a mobile provisioning certificate for iOS that I can use for a cloud build for my Highland Panic game. So if we go over to Configurations and we say Target Setup and we pick iOS. All right, and then I'm going to choose the iOS release branch. And I don't need a subfolder. I'm going to use the latest 2021 version. And actually, do I want that or the latest 2021.3? I think I want the latest 21.3. I don't want the auto detect Unity version. We need to enter our bundle ID. So you remember that's COM, and in my case, Midnight Oil Software Highland Panic. And then the Xcode version, I believe, is 12. And the credential set is going to be that one we just created. And we do want it to automatically build whenever we update a repository. At least I do. So I'm going to go ahead and select that and go to Advanced Settings. And I'm not sure I need to change anything in any of these. I am going to be adding a script to mine to upload the build once it's complete up to the App Store Connect, but we're going to do that in a later step. So click Save Configuration. And you can see we've got a configuration here for default iOS. And if I was to just go ahead and click Build, it's going to actually go grab my source code from GitLab and attempt to make an iOS build from it. And it will sign it with those credentials that we created. And if I wanted to, I could manually then take that build and upload it to the Apple App Store. But I'm going to show you how we can configure this to do that for us automatically. So let's jump over to our App Store Connect page. You need to have an Apple developer account, obviously. But assuming you have that, go to appstoreconnect.apple.com and log in, and then click on My Apps, and then click Plus and add a new app. And it will be for iOS, and I'm going to call this Highland Panic. The primary language will be English US. The bundle ID. And then I'm going to actually use something very similar to my bundle ID for my SKU here. This is just a unique name that it doesn't get displayed, so I don't think it really matters. It just needs to be unique. And it wants to know what users can see this app. So we're going to go ahead and say everybody can see it and click Create. And this is the page where you can configure all the information to market your app. You want to put in promotional text, a description, keywords. If you have a web page that people can go to for support, a marketing page, your copyright notice. You are going to have, by the way, a requirement that you have some kind of a privacy notice. Then you're going to have a link for that. We'll get to that a little bit later. But essentially upload any screenshots that you want to promote your game here. and fill in all of this information. You're also going to want to say whether or not you're going to automatically release this or if you want to manually release it. I like to manually release my versions. So I'm just going to go ahead and put in some basic stuff here. And I'm going to pause the video while I enter all that. And then I'm going to come back and resume the tutorial. Okay, and so here we are back in our App Store Connect page. You can see I've added some screenshots for the iPad and also for the iPhone. If we scroll down a little bit, you'll see I put in some description text, and up above that, a little bit of promotional text. I added the URLs for my web page for both the support and marketing URL. I added some copyright information and the version number. And so if you go over to the pricing and availability, I actually did enter pricing for a bunch of different countries, and I checked this make available for pre-order. I need to put a release date in there. I haven't done that yet. Under the privacy policy page, I did add a link to my privacy policy page on my web page. That is a little bit beyond the scope of this tutorial, but if you Google what kind of things you need to do to put in there, that should be sufficient. Basically, I'm saying I don't collect any data from the users in my app. Okay, so let's go ahead and set up our Unity Cloud build to automatically push this thing up to the Apple App Store. We're going to go into our configuration for iOS, and we're going to scroll down to the advanced settings. And before I do that, I wanted to show you that I did change the Xcode version. The version I selected before was not compatible with the version of Unity that I was running, and I was getting some build errors, so I fixed that. But scrolling down under Advanced Settings, we're going to see some post-build stuff. There's the post-build script path, and that's where we're going to specify the path to that bash script that we added to our project. So up here, go up a little bit. Yeah, right here under post-build script, I'm going to select the path where I put my bash script. Now, it will probably be different in your project, so wherever you put it in your project, just make sure that that path matches exactly. And scrolling down to environment variables, this is where we set our iTunes password and username and the target name, which if we go back up and look under basic settings, that's the target name we specified here, except we are going to make it all lowercase and replace the space with a hyphen. So let's save those changes. And then as long as we've saved everything and we pushed our changes to source control, we can just click build, and that should build our app and push it to the Apple App Store. So let's click that build button and let that run. It'll take about 20 to 30 minutes. So I'll pause the video and we will come back when that is done. Well, alrighty, the build has finished. I've gone over to the build history tab, and you can see we had a successful build. It took 21 minutes to build, and that was 6 hours ago for me. I've actually already grabbed this build and put it on my iPad and my iPhone to test it, and I can tell you that it does work. Although there are some tweaks that I need to be made to it before I'm ready to push it out to the customers. But if we hop over here to App Store Connect and go into Highland Panic and go over to TestFlight, that build shows up here under iOS builds. You can see it was version 0.3, which is the version that I had specified in the build settings in Unity. And it says ready to submit. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually submit this to the App Store now, but I'm not ready to do that. This app needs to be tested. So what you want to do is come over here to internal testing and click this little plus button and create a new internal testing group. I'm going to call mine QA. And I'm going to invite myself by clicking this little plus button next to testers here. And I'm going to click add. Now, I've already done this. So you can see that down here it shows that I installed this and I ran it. If I wanted to, I could have provided feedback, and I could have provided some screenshots of my feedback. And this is a great way to find out how things look for your testers. You can also add external testing groups, so you might want to add your friends or family. and you can invite them the same way that I invited myself here. You just specify their email address, and you can even specify what builds they are allowed to test, right? And then you can provide an email address that they can supply feedback to and so forth. And then if your app requires a sign-in, you would specify that information here. So that's how you can set up your testing groups. And once it's gone through all of the necessary testing, you can then submit it for review for the Apple App Store. Now, I'm not ready to do that yet because my app still has a lot of testing that needs to be done, and I'm sure there's going to be some bug fixes and other things. So I will have a follow-up video for those steps that you can use to follow. In this process, I know it's a little tedious, especially setting up those certificates, getting your source control set up, your Unity Cloud build set up. But I hope you can see that once that's set up, it's almost one button simple. You just push your changes to source control and Unity Cloud build will do the rest. So I hope that was a useful tutorial to you. And if it was, do me a favor and click that like and subscribe button. I really like to know that people appreciate my work, and nothing shows support better than liking and subscribing my channel. By the way, if you really want to show support, hop over to my Steam page. I'll put a link in the description. And if you're watching this before release, wishlist my Highland Panic game. It's a multiplayer card game with the mechanics of solitaire, but you're racing against other human opponents. It's kind of like Dutch Blitz or Nerds. I don't know if you're familiar with those games, but if you like them, you'll love Highland Panic. And if you're watching after the release, well, maybe buy the game. But anyway, if you have any questions or comments about anything that I shared in this video, and I'm sure a video like this is bound to lead to some questions, then just drop a comment down below, or better yet, hop over to my Discord server. I will put a link in the description to that as well. So thanks so much for watching, and good luck on your game development journey.